Welcome to Policy Precision, where we provide an unbiased dive into executive orders. I'm Ethan Caldwell.
And I'm Nora Harper. Today, we are deconstructing a major one, Executive Order 1494, a directive that brings international trade and border security crashing together.
As always, I'll be digging into the what, the specific language, the mechanics, and how this whole policy is put together.
Right, and I'll be exploring the why. What's the bigger context here, and what are the potential human impacts? So let's jump right in.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with what this directive actually is, then we'll look at the national emergency that was declared to justify it. From there, we'll dive into the 25% tariff itself, figure out how it works, and wrap things up with what happens next.
All right, first up, a presidential directive. We're digging into Executive Order 14194. Its official title is Imposing Duties to Address the Situation at Our Southern Border, and it was signed on February 1st, 2025 by President Donald J. Trump.
So let's unpack that a little. What does this order really do? Well, it's a pretty huge deal. The president is invoking something called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA for short, which dates all the way back to 1977. Basically, this law gives the president the authority to regulate international commerce once a national emergency has been declared. And that's exactly what's happening here. A national security concern is being directly tied to some serious economic penalties.
That's right, Nora. And that's the key. You can't just use a powerful tool like IEEPA without an official reason. You have to declare a national emergency. So let's look at the official justifications, the reasons that are laid out right in the text of the order itself.
Okay, so the very first justification really zeroes in on the domestic impact inside the U.S. The order states that this situation is putting a severe strain on everything from our healthcare system to our schools, and it claims it's endangering American lives.
The next point shifts the focus directly to Mexico. The text explicitly says that Mexico has played a central role in these challenges, and it asserts that their government has failed to commit the necessary resources or attention to stop the flow of people and drugs.
And this is where we get to what is, without a doubt, the most direct and frankly explosive claim in the entire document. The order alleges, and I'm quoting again, an intolerable alliance between Mexican drug trafficking organizations, or DTOs, and the Mexican government. It then frames that alleged alliance as a direct threat to the national security of the United States. That's some incredibly strong language.
Okay, so those 3 points are the official why, the justification for the national emergency. Now, let's get to the what. What is the actual action being taken? This is where you see that clear line drawn between the security claims we just discussed and the economic tool that's being put into play.
And here it is, the core of the order, a 25% tariff. That means an additional 25% duty is being imposed on essentially all goods that are products of Mexico. We're talking about a huge, across-the-board tax on imports.
Now, there's a specific term in the order that's worth knowing, ad valorem. It sounds kind of tactical, but all it means is that the tax is based on the value of an item, not say its weight or how many there are. So to put it simply, a really expensive product, like a car imported from Mexico, is going to get hit with a much bigger tax bill in dollar terms than something less expensive like an avocado.
All right, so we've got this 25% value-based tax on all Mexican goods. But how does a policy like this actually get put into motion? What are the real nuts and bolts of how it all works on the ground?
Let's break down the mechanics, which are laid out in Section 2 of the order. First, the effective date. This thing went into effect fast, at 12:01 a.m. on February 4th. Second, there's a transit exemption. So if goods were already on their way to the U.S. before the order was signed, they're exempt. That's a key detail. Third, there's a retaliation clause. Basically, it says the president can raise the tariffs even higher if Mexico retaliates with its own. And finally, and this is important for a lot of smaller businesses, there's no de minimis treatment. That's the rule that usually lets small, low-value shipments come in duty-free. Well, not anymore.
So the order puts this pretty massive economic measure in place, but it doesn't just leave it open-ended. It also provides a way out, an off-ramp if you will. So what happens next? The final part of the policy lays out the specific conditions for actually removing the tariff.
And this is where things get a lot less about hard numbers and a lot more about human judgment. The tariffs can be lifted, but only after the Secretary of Homeland Security determines that Mexico has taken adequate steps to fix the problem. Now, that determination isn't made in a vacuum.
It's done in consultation with the Secretary of State and the Attorney General. But notice the key word there, adequate. There's no specific goal line across, no set timeline. It's really a judgment call based on cooperation. And at the end of the day, the president makes the final decision.
So, there you have it. That's our deep dive into the mechanics and justifications of Executive Order 1494. It's a really clear example of using a powerful economic lever to try and achieve foreign policy and national security goals.
It absolutely is, and it leaves us with this big, lingering question. When you have a policy where economics and national security intersect so directly, who feels that impact first? Because the ripple effects of something like this can be felt everywhere, from the people working in factories to every single one of us at the grocery store checkout line. Thank you for joining us here on Policy Precision.